Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2009 animated film Fantastic Mr. Fox. This one I honestly really enjoyed. I thought it was, no pun intended, fantastic. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, I would like to give a special shout out to Leon for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. A link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Fantastic Mr. Fox is a stop motion animation film that is based on the short story or the book of the same name by Roald Dahl. Now, Roald Dahl's an author you might be familiar with. He wrote the book that ultimately became Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, as well as a bunch of other children's novels. And this film is directed by Wes Anderson. And Wes Anderson is known for his surreal comedies, his art house films. I would say this is definitely, arguably, his most mainstream movie. Because this is a film that honestly can appeal to everyone, kids, adults, and not just to the art house crowd. In a lot of ways, this reminded me of something like Chicken Run, not just because of the plot, that it's very similar, but because of its same quirky charm. The direction has a lot of quirky and just fun energy throughout it. I think Wes transitioned and was able to transfer his skills as a live action director into the realm of animation rather smoothly. And I think that's because a lot of his films already have this kind of animated vibe to them. So it really wasn't that drastic of a departure when it comes to his signature style. And you still have the same sort of surreal wide shots and zooms and pans, and but with animation he's really able to showcase surreal imagery in a way that he isn't necessarily able to do with live action. He stretches the live action format the most he possibly can, but there's still certain things you can't do in live action as well as you can with animation. And there are just some absolutely gobsmacking shots in this. Like there's a shot with Mr. Fox and Mrs. Fox, and they're standing in front of this waterfall. Really, what it is, it's a part of a sewer, and it's like the runoff. But the way that that whole shot is set up, the way that it looks, it's just absolutely stunning. And there's quite a few other sequences like that in this film. I think Anderson's direction really does lend itself well to the stop motion animation. It's not one of those things where you have a director that's not really fitting with the particular genre of filmmaking. He's right at home here, and it's just a fun film to watch just for that reason alone, to see Wes Anderson's take on an animated film. I know a lot of critics at the time, they praised it and they said things like it gives Pixar a run for its money, and I honestly do agree with that. I think his direction is every bit as good as some of the more well-known Pixar filmmakers of this particular time period. There's a reason why this is a beloved classic for a lot of people, especially people who saw this when it came out or grew up with the movie. I'm not one of them, but if I did watch this when I was younger, I'm pretty sure I would have really enjoyed it because I like a lot of these kind of movies that deal with animals interacting with humans in unique sort of ways, like Chicken Run and Flushed Away. So I like those kind of movies. So this was definitely something that was already up my alley. But yeah, Wes Anderson did an amazing job with the direction for this. Good job setting up the different sort of scenarios for the stop motion puppets. Did a great job establishing the setting and showcasing the beauty of the art direction when it comes to the various different sets, and framed his shots very well. That's a very key thing when it comes to animation, is you have to frame things in a way that really enables the animators to shine and not be limited or not be stuck in a particular spot, or be stuck in a limited box, so to speak. So you have to find ways through the framing of the shots to be able to enable the animators to fluidly work. And I definitely feel that this is one of those films that definitely uh, uh, provides that kind of fluidity and that kind of movement for the animation. Wes also wrote the script along with Noah Baumbach, and it's based on the book by Roald Dahl, but really the majority of the film is the second act of the book. And the two writers, they decided to add a few little things of their own to kind of make the second act into its own standalone story. And I think that was actually a good idea. The second act is a very compelling story with Mr. Fox and his family and the other animals going up against these farmers, and these farmers are relentless and they want revenge and they want to kill Fox and all of the other animals, because Fox outsmarted them and took their goods, uh, and they are not going to take no for an answer, and they're willing to just tear apart like everything. They're willing to shoot up the place. They're willing to tear apart the foxhole and rip out the tree and do all this kind of excessive kinds of stuff when it comes to trying to get to the foxes and the other animals. And I like that that's really the main crux of the story is that it's Fox and his family and his friends having to find a way to outsmart these humans and survive. But I also like that there's a lot of character arcs involved with these different characters, with Mr. Fox or Mrs. Fox, or with Christopherson, or with Fox's son, Ash. Ash has arguably the best arc because he starts out feeling like he's being ostracized by his own father, because his father idolizes Christopherson more than Ash, and Ash just feels like he's never going to live up to his father's legacy because he's not as good of an athlete. He's not honestly as good or as smart or as charming as his father is. But as the story progresses, he gets more and more confident. And by the end of the film, he gets this big grand moment where he gets to showcase the skills that he's learned and his worth. And I really like that about his arc, and I really like that about the story in general. And I just like the variety of the farms too. That was fun too. One's a chicken farm, one's a farm that specializes in what is it, like ham and refrigerated stuff. Another one is an alcoholic cider, apple cider farm, and all the different farmers, like, they have their own different sort of unique personalities and quirks. Frank Bean and Bogus and Bunce, and I just really love the variety of different animals as well. Like, you not only have foxes, but you also have badgers and weasels and rats. You have this rat character. It's just called Rat. It's a character voiced by Willem Dafoe, who's like security for Bean, and he he has an interesting arc as well. Like, he actually has a redemptive arc, which I did not expect for this rat character. So there's a lot of thought that's put into the script when it comes to having arcs for characters. And I felt the ending was rather different as well. Like you think, oh no, like the animals, they're stuck in the sewer now and they're starving, but Fox finds a way to uh, get into a supermarket by the end of the story. So now they're not going to be starving anymore. Now they can really just maintain this whole new community that they've built inside of this sewer, which is something that you might not necessarily expect, considering the fact that they were thrown in there and held captive there by the farmers. But they found a way to actually make that into a positive instead of a negative, which I like that. I like that as well. And I also like the fact that it doesn't really have an ending that is necessarily typical, where the farmers they don't learn a lesson. They're still waiting for the fox and the animals to come out of the sewer so they can shoot them, so they can, get their revenge. But it's hopeless and it's literally pointless now because of the fact that the foxes and all the other animals, they've found their own way to sustain themselves inside the sewer. And I like that there's also like a lot of social commentary and subtext in this script that makes you think, but it's not to the point where it seems like it's pretentious. Like you do have various different sort of themes, yeah, the class struggle, gender roles, and people being in denial and then ultimately accepting their fate and things like that. But it's not really to the point where it feels like it's being shoved down your throat or anything of that sort. And comedy wise, there's a couple moments that might make you chuckle, might make you smirk. It's not the funniest script, I have to admit, but it definitely has its moments when it comes to some of the freakouts by the farmers when they realize that their prized, precious goods have been stolen by these foxes. And I also feel that there's enough moments of intrigue and action throughout the story to maintain interest. It's not a very long film, so it's not one of those things where it feels like anything is too played out or stretched out to its limits when it comes to different story beats and different story elements. So overall, I think it's a really good script. That's got a lot of charm to it. It's very quirky. It's very endearing in its own way. Uh, and it can be a bit, I don't know if I would say cliched, but it can be a little predictable at points, but at other points, not so much. And for a story like this, I think it having some predictable beats isn't really necessarily that much of a negative. It's actually something that you would necessarily expect for something like this. So it's not really something that I feel is that detrimental to the story. And it's at the end of the day, it's still a rather straightforward story, but it's effective. It does a good job establishing the characters, establishing Fox and his family, the dynamic between Fox and his wife and his kid, uh, bringing Christopherson into the fold, also having this other possum character who I believe his name is Petey. I think that's the name of a. I think that's the name of the character. Yeah, there's this. Yeah, this Kylie. Actually, it's Kylie. His friend is Kylie. So you have Kylie, who's brought in, who's a possum, and he befriends Fox and even joins him on his heists because Fox used to be a thief. He used to steal chickens and do all this other sort of stuff from farms, but he quit when things got a little bit too heavy and once his wife was pregnant. And so he became like he went straight. He was now a newspaper columnist, and I really like that too. The way that the script takes human things and makes them a part of this animal world. Like that was definitely something that was intriguing. But because of the fact that Fox is so used to this life of crime, he's just can't resist going back to his old ways, and that ultimately gets him into trouble, as well as the rest of his friends and his family, and he has to find a way to make things right. And I like that his arc ultimately has a point where he's even willing to sacrifice himself for the good of many. Uh, but ultimately, he decides against that to save his son and fight the rat. And then he decides, no, I'm not gonna do the suicide mission. We're gonna go and get Christopherson. And because Christopherson gets captured by the farmers. And of course that all happens after Fox and his family, they're under siege by the farmers who are trying to get to them to get their revenge. And there's even a point where Fox and his crew actually steal everything from the farmers, and now they have all the food. Now they have everything. And so it seems like, okay, they've won, but they didn't, because the farmers still found a way to outsmart them by using the cider and flooding them, and sending them into the sewer, which I felt that was a nice touch as well when it comes to the script and the way that the story unfolded. But ultimately, they still find a way to get around that and actually turn that situation and that setting of being in the sewer into a positive, because they make it their new home. So, yeah, it's not a story that's groundbreaking or anything, but it still works. It still works when it comes to the morals. It still works when it comes to the character arcs. And it's still, at the end of the day, pretty satisfying. Like a nice, fresh, crisp apple. Really is. It's that kind of satisfying story. Now, as good as this film is when it comes to the script and the story, it's not really going to work as well without the right voice cast. And I feel that this movie has a absolutely amazing, top-notch voice cast. It's headlined by George Clooney and Meryl Streep, who play Mr. and Mrs. Fox. The two of them are great. They have really good chemistry with one another, and it's just nice to hear these two in the realm of animation, because that's not really something that they did a lot of. So it shows they're even more talented when it comes to their acting ability than you might initially think, because they're able to also do voiceover work as well as they do work when it comes to live acting. I feel that both of them just exemplify their characters really well. George Clooney as Fox, he's suave, he's charismatic, he's cocky, uh, and he really has this pressure all the time to be fantastic and for people to actually see him as fantastic. But that has a price, and that had ultimately does affect him. And there's a great moment where Clooney uh, shows that side of Mr. Fox, where he realizes that it's not necessarily a good thing that he has to constantly try to get people to see him as being fantastic, regardless of the situation or what's happening. Meryl Streep's character, she's in a lot of ways, she's even more strong and steadfast and I wouldn't say stubborn, but she's definitely in a lot of ways still a very strong character, because she has to really internalize a lot of things. She has to maintain integrity, keep the relationship strong, be there for for her husband as well as her son and Christopherson. Try to keep everything all together despite everything that's going on, and despite the apple cider, flooding everything, and and despite things seeming like they're at their bleakest. And so she represents in a lot of ways hope and does that very well. And Jason Schwartzman kind of channeling a little bit of Ryan Reynolds here as Ash, but it works, playing a young Fox who's frustrated. He's frustrated with his place in life. He's frustrated with his relationship with his father, and he ultimately does something and is a big part of why they're able to survive the finale. So he does earn his father's respect in the end. So he did a good job showcasing that immaturity when it comes to Ash. You also have, like, Bill Murray, who has a bit role as a Clive Badger, who's a friend and colleague of Mr. Fox. Willem Dafoe plays the rat, and he did some really remarkable work with that performance. Menacing, but also at the same time surprisingly deep, especially when the rat is dying. It's a good performance by Willem Dafoe. Michael Gambon as Frank Bean. He's a lot of ways the main villain. Like you have Bogus and Bunce, voiced by Robin Hurlstone and Hugo Guinness, but they don't really have a ton of dialogue. the the dialogue, for the most part, in terms of the majority of it, is really given to Michael Gambon, and man, does he do a great job with it. It was so fun to hear Gambon play a bad guy again, because I remember him playing the villain in Toys with Robin Williams, and I thought he did an amazing job in that film, and he does a great job here playing Frank Bean. Honestly, he was the funniest character in the film for me. When he has his freakouts, like when he just tears apart the RV, like this camper that he's staying in with the other guys. It just tears it apart because he's so frustrated with not being able to get this fox. Um, he's a very underrated actor in general, and this is just a really nice role for him to just let loose and have fun again, like what he did in Toys. Owen Wilson, he's in this as Coach Skip. He's just a coach for the sports team. It's fine for a little bit that he has. Wallace Wolodarsky, who voices Kylie the possum, I thought was great. I thought he did a really good job playing that character. He's the other voice actor who I think did the best when it comes to the comedic elements, and I felt he had some good chemistry with George Clooney as well. You bought that he was friends with Mr. Fox. Um, you also have Eric Anderson, who is Wes Anderson's brother, who voices Christopherson. I feel that he's the other performer that really stood out for me, because Christopherson had a decent amount of screen time, and I felt he did a great job. A really, really solid, strong job voicing that character. A complex character, a character who has all these different eccentricities and different things that he's able to do. Like, he could do karate, and he's smart, and he's this and that, but there's also certain subtleties and nuances to his character that I feel that Eric really did bring to Christopherson. Now, the film also features some cinematography by Tristan Oliver and editing by Andrew Weisblum. Both of those elements of the film are good. I think that they're definitely exemplary, especially for a stop motion animated film. The editing in particular, because editing in these kind of movies is very vital, and I feel the editing is a big reason why the film maintains its quirky energy throughout the runtime. And I definitely want to mention the stop motion animators. Like, they did a spectacular job when it comes to the animation in this. Now, the film also features a score by Alexandre Desplat, and I don't think it's one of the most dynamic or one of the best scores from this composer, but it fits for the film. It works for the movie. It works for the energy. It works for the overall tone and the vibe of the movie. Uh, but the songs that Wes and the other people involved with the movie chose for the film, those are the things that stood out more to me than Desplat's score. In particular, the song they used for the end credits and the last few sequences of the film. Uh, a song called "Let Her Dance" by the Bobby Fuller Four. Like I really liked that song. I thought that was a song that was really catchy and just fit the overall tone and feel of the film very well, and ended things on a pretty good high note with this catchy, fun tune from yesteryear. It's one of those films too that, like I said, it's not very long. So it's like an hour and 20 something minutes without the end credits. So it definitely doesn't get to a point where it feels like it's too tedious, too dull, goes by at a quick pace. I feel that the plot and everything involving the character arcs is engaging and interesting enough that it never really has a moment where it slows down too much or gets to the point where it becomes boring. So yeah, I would definitely say that this was one of the better animated films of the 2000s. And it's a film that I would definitely recommend. If you like these kind of movies, if you like animated films, this is definitely one that's worth watching. Not just for the visuals. The visuals are amazing. They are spectacular in one more than one scene, but also for the voiceover work, for Wes Anderson's direction, and for uh, the overall script and the story. I just feel it all came together so well, and all these different elements were combined together and just created something that was just honestly like eating a delicious, well seasoned plate of roasted chicken. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Fantastic Mr. Fox. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.